Welcome to the basement.
Where the ghosts are weird and so are we. In episode 2, if you go back and watch, toward the beginning, the first, 10 minutes or so, there is like a ghostly encounter where behind us a picture kind of writes itself. Ray's a non-believer in this. I think you go to episode 2, you look at it, you can decide for yourself.
Well, Ray knows who hung the picture.
It's not about the hanging. Yes, it fell, but as you can see in episode 2, it like completely tilts itself. It's in a natural way.
It didn't float across the room or anything.
I don't know. It was pretty close to floating, if you ask me. But
it looked pretty weird.
We record this podcast in our basement, and before you lived here, because this is Ray's home. It was this home for many years before I moved in. There was a minister who lived here.
Yeah.
And the basement was his study.
The room right over there
was his study, and he had a wealth of religious artifacts.
Yeah, it was a wall to wall of stuff.
Of just stuff. And I think that is where these like phenomenons have kind of crept in from.
You think they're like just passing through? They've been here before, and they're like, "Oh, I'm sorry, I thought."
No, I think they're stuck in this basement.
No.
I think that's the only way. And the funny thing is that Ray is the skeptic, right? So when we were discussing podcast topics, he was like, "Hey, let's do a ghost story podcast. Let's talk about the hauntings." And I was like, "You don't even believe."
But I find it eerie. I like the subject.
You like the subject. You wish the basement was haunted, but you don't think it is.
Yeah, I don't think so.
I think it is. And we want to tell you about a few encounters that we've had in the basement and things that we've done or I've done to try to cleanse the spirits in our basement.
Just last night I was down here and I had some of these lights I was working on, and one of them just goes off.
Well, I mean, maybe it blew a bulb, or maybe you tripped on the cord. Or...
Yeah, but I didn't.
Yeah, but we've had some.
So I come over here and I started working on it, and the other one goes off.
That's not ghostly. That's just electrical.
Now, if that happened to you,
I'd be like, what have I done wrong here?
You'd be
no.
Shaking the water.
It takes a lot more to kind of freak me out. But I do want to say your one time that I know you were freaked out down here is you were sitting at your computer, because we also have a music studio.
I kind of forgot about that.
Yeah, we have a music studio here, and Ray was sitting at the computer doing some mixing and what have you. And what happened?
I can't remember. Remind me.
Oh my gosh, Ray, this didn't affect you?
Scared the hell out of me. I remember that.
Well, you said that behind you just heard, "Hey."
Yeah.
And you turned around because
it sounded very close and very like right in my ear.
Right? And it freaked you out.
Yeah.
And you were just like, "Oh man." See, but you don't believe, like, that was a situation where like your body told you like, "Oh, this is not right."
I don't know what it could have been, honey.
I mean, what else could it have been, Ray, that said, "Hey"?
I don't know.
What else could it possibly have been?
I don't know.
You think there's another explanation for that?
I can't think of any.
Well, this basement, Brantley, one of our sons, lived in this area where we're at right now for several years, for like 4 years, I guess. And he had many encounters. So we have a door that goes to the garage down the hallway. And that door, and I've seen this happen too, that door will just open itself and it will slam itself shut. And this is not an airflow issue, because that's initially what you think is, oh, there's a draft that's causing it to happen.
And it was.
No, it was not a draft. Have you picked this podcast topic just to argue with me?
Yeah, of course.
That was your...
I've seen it happen so many times.
Yeah, because the ghost has lived here since before you got here.
And I just blamed it on the wind. Oh, it's the wind.
But there's no wind. We're inside.
It's a door to the garage, honey.
But the garage door's not open.
It's got a dog door. It's got drafts.
There is no way that it would slam it that hard.
You know?
Right? So one other weird phenomenon that has happened, as you can see, if you look at our videos, we have guitars hanging on the walls. We have keyboards around. We have, at one time, we had drums out. And things that would happen would be that the guitars would just start playing themselves on the walls. Now, you have to say that's weird.
What did they play?
It wasn't any tune
Was
that
it anything I knew?
nothing I recognized, but it's so strange. They would just start playing, and there's no draft that can play guitar.
It could have been. Who knows?
Yeah, what's your explanation for that, buddy?
A mouse.
A mouse is playing the guitar. And the keyboard, it would just turn on and just start playing like chords. That's weird.
I never saw that.
Well, you did hear the guitars. You did witness that. Various guitars, and they're not plugged up to anything. There's no electric.
And it was a dobro, actually, the guitar that made that noise.
Not all of them.
And in a basement, in wintertime and summer, they change. The wood moves.
And it plays itself.
It was the body just moving, yeah.
What about when the drums were playing themselves?
They didn't do that.
They did do that. You have forgotten. I Swanee, you picked this podcast topic just to tick me off.
Drums that played themselves.
Yes, that occurred here. Lights going off and on their own, not your lights, but like real lights going off and on. And we have this hallway, and it is creepy. And every time I'm in it, I'm like, there's some bad energy. Oh, so I'm a radio show host. I do a morning show here in Lexington and a midday show. And when I was submitting my audition video, I was trying to get somewhere in the house where I was away from the dogs, right? Because I needed to do this silly little video, and I just needed a place where they were not barking incessantly. So I went into one of the bedrooms down here in the basement, and I was recording, and I have this on video still. And as I'm doing it, there's something that moves in the corner of the room. Okay. And you can see my reaction on my audition video. I was like, oh my gosh. But I just kept going. I mentioned it in the video, and I was like, I'm just going to keep going. But that happened. Things move in there. And yeah, and that could have been a mouse. I mean, I don't know. But the weirdest thing that happened, I think, was one of our sons lives upstairs in one of the upstairs bedrooms. And a few years ago, he started waking up with like claw mark scratches on his back, right? And so initially we did try to justify this. Like, he doesn't sleep with the dogs. I'm like, is there something in your bed? Because he's a little bit of a messy kid. I was like, is there something that could have scratched you? And he said, no, Mom, I feel like something is attacking me in my sleep. And so I'm like, I did kind of blow that off at first. But then it just kept happening, like week after week. He would get these like claw marks down his back and nowhere where he could have reached to scratch. And I flipped my lid. Okay. So we're Christians. And so it's a very fine walk for us between like the paranormal and our Christianity. However, I do believe that there are evil entities among us, and that the enemy is very real, and that spiritual warfare is a real thing, right? So, of course, I say, well, he has a demon attached to him, because what else am I going to say, right? And what did you think at that time that I was losing my mind?
I just tried to ignore the whole thing.
Tried to just ignore it. It's just done.
I didn't think anything was...
You didn't think that was weird that the kid had like claw marks?
No, like you said. But you've always said he's had some sort of attachment.
Yeah, so we'll talk about that.
Maybe you all brought that here.
What? You're trying to say that we brought demons with us when we moved here in your home that was so peaceful before we got here? Is that what you're saying?
No, I don't know.
Yes, you are. That is exactly.
But you've always said he's had some sort. He used to see the
right. So we'll talk about that in a minute. But I'll tell you what my reaction was to what I had just determined. There was a demon attached to my teenage child.
Yeah.
His mood was awful. He was like super depressed. He had these claw marks out of nowhere, and I was like, we have a demon attachment. Well, being the uneducated exorcist that I am, I was like, we're going to have to get rid of this demon. So I went into overdrive. I ignorantly, because I did no research and I had no guidance, I did all of the things that I found on the internet to get rid of
Pretty
demons.
much. Pretty much.
We did bell cleansings. We did salt around all the doorways. We did sage. We did like
Most of the salt's still there.
we did the demanding in the name of Jesus.
If y'all let's see, if y'all look, so, behind me right here,
Oh, okay.
right? Oh, it'll come back around.
Where? What is it?
Get her to be quiet just a sec. That little piece of paper you see on the wall right there.
Yes.
What is that?
Well, that was part of it too. So I took and I didn't even have any paper. I just took like an old bill and just like ripped it up because I also couldn't find scissors. And I just wrote Bible verses of protection, different ones in every room of our house.
At every
has
doorway.
that every doorway, every light switch has a Bible verse of protection that I taped on the wall, and they've been there. Gosh, it's probably been 5 or 6 years now that they're there.
I don't think any of them have came down.
No, they haven't come down in every room. So my son is like thinking, I've lost my mind. Okay. Completely lost my mind. I am going through the house with Sage yelling, in the name of Jesus Christ, get out. And all this stuff, making sure the doors are open, completely ignorant. Now, since then, I have had a little bit of guidance, spiritual guidance, in a way that we do anointing now. We don't use sage or bells or anything else to do that, but we do use anointed oil.
We put up a pentagram and
No,
candles.
no, we don't do anything.
Get
But
the Ouija board out.
But I tell you what, and I believe this, and I'll tell another story about this, but I believe that those Bible verses on the wall were the biggest impact. And I'll still tell you, when I come down here by myself, sometimes I get really kind of freaked out, and I will say the Lord's Prayer like out loud, because I'm like, well, there ain't no demons gonna be getting me when I'm saying the Lord's Prayer. And I do that, and it makes me feel better. But these Bible verses, I'm not kidding. I had a friend named Amanda, and when we were growing up, her mom had Bible verses just written out and stuck to walls. Like if you went to the bathroom at her house, there weren't magazines. You could just read the wall. It was just random.
This is the Amanda I know.
Yes, the Amanda. And I thought that was so weird. Okay. I thought that was bonkers. Bonkers. But now that is me. That is me. I am writing Bible verses, but I want to tell you another story. And I believe, I'm not trying to be religious here, but I believe in the power of the written word on paper that will kind of deter evil. So we, our family owned a bar, still owns a bar, but at their first location, I had some people that I was convinced were evil. They were causing such chaos in our family that I was like, they have got to go. And I kept saying, they've got to go. They've got to go. And I said, I feel like they're evil. So what I did, they had a table that they sat at every time they came. It was their table. They're very entitled. So anyhow, what I did was I wrote a Bible verse out that was about protection of evil, and it was about like if there's any evil here, for God to get rid of it. And Ray laughed at me. I wrote it on a piece of paper and I taped it underneath their table so no one will see, right? Swanee, the next day, the leader of the pack gets upset, refuses to come into the bar, and says she'll never be back. And I was like, oh, that Bible verse worked. It was insane, but it was so timely that I was convinced. I was like, well, if I want to get rid of people,
there is a lot of evil.
Forget murder, forget hiring an assassin, forget all that stuff. All you need is a Bible verse on a piece of paper and just put it wherever the evil is. And poof, it is gone. It's crazy. It's crazy, but you have to admit that did happen.
Yes, it did.
And you do not believe. So I guess in your mind, like, you do believe in God and the power of Scripture and the power of the Word, but you don't believe in ghosts. So you believe that can be effective.
I've seen some weird stuff. That night that I heard that, I don't know, I can't explain that. Only other thing in my life that I can recall I've known a lot of people that say there is, but I had a cat that disappeared after we got a dog, and it just split.
It's like, see you bye.
Been gone about 2 years, and I had that day. One day, a friend of mine was playing bass in a band in town. I was like 14, still in school. Got off the bus. I was going to a bar that night with him.
Bar. Things were different then. 14-year-olds going to bar, no
You
big
know,
deal.
yeah,
It's a music life.
they asked my parents, and, you know,
Can I take your child to a bar? Yes.
and they're like, oh, they're such angels.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and so I was excited about that happening that night. And I come in the front door of the house, and my mom and dad's there, which was rare, and they said, we got to tell you, Tommy died in a car wreck today.
So that was the friend that was supposed to be taking you.
Yeah, and about right at that moment, that cat walked in and just started walking around my legs.
After 2 years.
Yeah, just purring and twisting around my legs. At that time, I lived in the center of the house. It had no windows, and I went in there, and I was emotional about it, and it pretty much just cried myself to sleep, and it laid and purred with me like cats do.
Sure.
And when I woke up, it was gone. And I went and asked my parents,
Where's the cat go?
where's the cat? And they said, I don't know, it was with you.
And you never saw it again?
We never saw it again.
Stop
So that's
it.
kind of weird.
And you don't believe that was some kind of weird thing?
I
How does
thought
that
was
happen?
all. I thought that was all. Now I even asked them later in life, did that happen? And they said, yeah.
That's bonkers. Going back to, I know you spoke of, and I won't reveal too much, but one of our sons, when he was very young, like 3 and 4 years old, he was a kid who saw ghosts. Okay, and at that time, I really did not buy into it. He would go and he knew things, like he knew where adults were. If I would say kind of like, oh, I wonder where your grandmother is, he would be like, oh, she's at Walmart buying toilet paper. And I'm like, what? So I would like call her, and she's like, oh, hey, I'm at Walmart buying toilet paper. Like, it was weird, right? And I just kind of chalked it up to like, well, he's kind of a weird kid. It just is what it is. And one of my uncles had a very, very old, built in like the 1800s.
You think he had The Shining?
I've never seen that. Don't even tell
That's
me
what
about
that is.
It's going to freak me out. So
Your grandmother, do you think they communicated to each other without speaking?
I don't know. But my aunt and uncle had a very old farmhouse, like 1800s built. And we went there they had half of it redone and half of it was kind of still just restored. It's a beautiful place. They still have it. And we went there for a Christmas holiday. And upstairs, they had a little playroom for all the grandkids. It was kind of an attic room. And in the corner of this attic room was a little rocking chair, just a little rocking chair, nothing weird. The house to me didn't feel like a weird vibe or anything. So I took him up there because he was restless. He was a kid. It was a bunch of adults. And I was like, let's go to the playroom. So we walk up the stairs, and he gets in the doorway of that room and just freezes. And he's like, no. And I was like, what is going on? It's just a playroom. Like, everything's fine. And he was like, do you see that little boy in that chair? And I'm like, no, I don't see any little boy in that chair. Come on. He about clawed me to death getting back down those stairs. Just was like hysterically upset. And I thought, what is going on? So I was telling my aunt, I was like, we can't go up there and play. He said he saw a little boy sitting in that rocking chair, and she looked at him and she said, she described a little boy. And he said, that was it. And she said, you're not the only kid that has said that. And I thought, well, that is weird.
You know, there might be spirits all over the place.
Well, I'll tell you.
And some people are just more prone.
I guess. I'll tell you another.
I had another person that spoke to dead people all the time.
I'm sorry, you just knew a person who spoke to
Yeah,
dead
I worked
people.
with them.
Like, just like during the
Yeah,
day.
we'd be in a car and at Toyota. I worked at Toyota, and they'd be in the back seat doing their job, and they'd go, "Oh, somebody's gonna die back here."
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah.
That's fun. So they weren't like a medium. They didn't like practice this. This wasn't like something they did. They were
It's
just
something
like,
they were very aware of.
who's to say that's not the truth? Now, the same kid, okay, a year later, my mom had a neighbor right next door that had their son passed away in a car accident, 16-year-old kid. It was
You
very,
told me about
very,
this.
very tragic. And I think my son was like 3 or 4 then still. And we were actually staying at my mom's house. He and I were staying at my mom's house shortly thereafter, like a day or two after this kid had passed. And of course, we had not spoken about this in front of the young kids. Like, why would we do that? That's terrifying, right?
Right.
So we're sleeping, and it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. Of course, it's like 3 o'clock in the morning. And he sits straight up in the bed because he was sleeping in the same bed as me, and just starts screaming and pointing toward the closet. Well, I'm freaking out, and he's like, "Do you see him? Do you see him?" And I'm like, "Oh my God." So I flip on the light because I'm a big chicken, okay? And I'm like, "What am I looking at?" And he's like, the boy that died next door. And I was like, "Oh my God." So I never saw anything. He was like horrified. My mom wakes up during this, right? She's like, "What's going on?" And she sees him, and she's looking at me like, "Oh my gosh, Whitney. Oh my gosh." And he is screaming. Finally, I calm him down. He goes back to sleep. And my mom and I went in the living room and slept on the couches because I couldn't do it.
Is that the scariest?
That was scary. That's probably the scariest encounter I had with him. He has since kind of lost the ability to see dead people. He still has like very strange things that happen to him, and he's insanely intuitive. But he has not mentioned seeing any type of ghosts or anything since he was probably like 5. He just and we talk about it. And he's like, "I really hope that I don't. Like, I'm not in a position where I don't want to." He remembers, but he doesn't want to do that anymore. It's bonkers.
Be kind of scary.
So before I was really diving in, I've always been a Christian, but before I was really kind of diving into my faith, I had a period of time for probably about 10 years that I really was not like walking the path, and I wasn't in church or anything like that. And I was going to a lot of psychics. Okay, not a lot, but I was going to mediums and psychics, and now I'm just much more careful about it. I just want to be sure that I'm protecting myself in that type of stuff.
Some people believe you're inviting them in.
Well, I think, I have a very strange opinion. I think my Christian friends would not completely agree with me, but I just think you have to be careful who you go to. If you're going to engage in that type of practice at all, I think you just have to make sure that it is a spiritually safe environment. Okay. That's kind of my thing on it. I do believe that people have gifts. I do think that they have gifts, and I think you and I kind of disagree on this. I'm not really sure, but I believe that those gifts do come from God. I don't believe that they are like devil given. I think there are some people who practice evil practices that
Right.
maybe have gifts, but I do think there are
Some people
Christian,
just evil.
there are Christian psychics, there are Christian mediums, as like contradicting as that sounds. And this is a hot topic, unpopular opinion. Okay. This
Yeah,
is,
definitely.
but like I am saying, I know and believe that to be true because I know at least one person that I really feel in my soul that this is just something that they were given, and the way that they use it is in a very positive way. But
You kind of work with a psychic now.
yeah, and that's actually who I'm talking about. Yeah. And so it has changed my opinion on the entire thing after having spiritual conversations about God with him. But I was going to tell the story about the first time I took you to a psychic. This has been years ago.
Oh, I don't know. I don't know.
Are we allowed to say that? Are we allowed? I think probably, right? Because everyone is
Yeah,
deceased.
Yeah.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
I'll be polite about how we deliver it.
I'm not a firm believer.
No,
No.
you went like hesitantly.
Yeah.
And I had really positive experiences with this woman. She's now retired. And I'm like, Ray, you got to go with me to see this psychic. You have to go. She'll just blow your mind. And he likes magic. And he's thinking, well, this might be kind of entertaining.
Yeah.
So I take you, and you get a general tarot card reading. And it is.
She couldn't even bend spoons, honey.
He walks in, can you bend spoons? She's like, no, why would I do that? And he's like, you are such a sham. No, but she did his tarot card reading and his numerology. It was pretty general. It wasn't like mind blowing in any kind of way. And at the end, because she was a medium, she said, did you bring any photos for me to try to connect anyone that has passed in your life? And Ray did bring a photo, but truly he just kind of brought it not to be rude because I had said she's going to ask you. He really didn't buy into any of it at all. And he said, well, yeah, I did. I brought this photo of my grandparents. And and can you tell me about them? Well, she goes on to describe them, I think, pretty accurately, a little vague. It could have been kind of either way, but there were a few little things that you were like, oh, yeah, that does sound like my granddad. And Ray says, just because he doesn't know what else to say, he says, oh, so are they hanging out up there in heaven? And she said,
I think she could feel that that was a butthole.
Well, she knew you were skeptical. And I'd actually love to hear what people who practice, psychic mediumship, like how they feel when they meet skeptics. Like, are they aggravated or do they feel like they have something to prove? I'll have to ask Ken about that. But
okay,
she says,
freeze. Stay, don't move. Skeptic. Am I saying it okay?
Yeah.
Skeptic. Go.
Hold on. Please leave that in this podcast. This is where we practice our enunciation. Oh my gosh. So he says, are my grandparents hanging out in heaven? Because she was like, they can do whatever they want. And she said, and he said, well, why are you doing that? Like, what's going on? And she said, not really. And he said, well,
she's so wrong.
He said, well, why wouldn't they be? And she said, well, your granddad had some behaviors when he was on earth and your grandma's forgiven him for it and it's all fine, but she doesn't really want to hang out with them up there. And Ray was just upset. You were so upset.
What an awful thing to tell somebody.
You looked at her and you said, are you telling me my grandfather was a whore?
I did say that, didn't I?
And she said, oh, no. I'm just saying that, like, he made some mistakes and your grandmother forgave him and you might have never known. And Ray looked at her and said, my grandfather was a saint.
It wasn't my eyes.
Exactly. And we got out of there.
Yeah, she had.
Wrong, he said. Completely wrong. And we got out of there and he said, I will never, ever do this again. Do not bring me back to one of these things. He did. Now, she's blown my mind before. I've had some really interesting experiences with her.
I've seen others, and they do little parlor tricks that are no different than what the magic we see at the Mexican restaurant.
Oh my gosh, that's kind of offensive, Ray. Maybe some. Okay, yes.
Oh yeah, they're. I see what they're doing.
Yeah. Some I can totally see. Now, I did believe in her more because I'd probably seen her 20 times before that. And maybe not. That's a little much, but quite a few times. And I had some really powerful
you told me some good stories about Audrey
and my experiences with her. And what she knew. It was quite amazing. But yeah, Ray, at that moment on that day when that psychic told him that his grandparents were not hanging out together in heaven, Ray was like, I'm done with you.
So what is your biggest wow moment as far as
ghosts?
Yeah, that goes.
The whole thing with
life can get scary, but I'm talking about afterlife, I guess.
Yeah. I mean, I think I have 3 pivotal ones. Like the whole thing with my son seeing the neighbor child who passed, that was very like, changing for me. I think that when I put that Bible verse, and this is not ghostly, but spiritual, when I put that Bible verse under that table at the bar, and literally the next day they refused to even come in the building, they refused to walk through the door. They came to the window to collect something that they had left. They refused to come in. And I was like, wow, that is powerful. That was another moment. And then I did have a moment that I've not spoken about on the podcast with that same psychic I took you to, where I was having an issue. I had a friend that passed, Audrey, and she had bought me a bracelet shortly before she passed, and I wore it all the time. And after she passed, it just started falling off my wrist. Like it was a toggle bracelet, hard to get on and off. It just started falling off on random times. And I really hadn't said a whole lot about it, but I did say to her parents, like, this is so weird. This bracelet just won't stay on my arm. I think I need to get it checked out. I don't want to lose it. It was important to me. And I did not mention it to her. And I went to see the psychic, and she had on a bracelet, did not say a word, had not posted about it.
This is the same psychic.
Same one. Had not posted about it on any social media. This was before social media was really like a huge thing. And she, at one point in the reading, she looked at me and she said, "Are you having trouble with the bracelet?" And I didn't have it on. And I said, "Yes, actually I am." And as soon as she said that, her bracelet, like she had her arm kind of like this, it fell off her arm and dropped onto the table. And I was there and two other people were there. And we were just like, whoa. And she laughed and she was like, "Silly Audrey, she's playing tricks." And I thought, this is weird. And that was like 3 for me. But I mean, for you, it was the cat thing.
Cat thing was,
That was pretty monumental.
yeah, it was kind of cool.
And the hay.
The hay thing.
That was weird.
Yeah. No, I haven't had much encounters.
Do you think that, spirits can kind of be in evil or good spirits, like demons or spirits? Can they be in our realm, or are you just completely opposed? Are you like, there are no spirits here? We are here in physical form. We go to heaven. That's it.
Yeah, that's what I believe.
So you don't believe there's any even evil entities that are walking among us?
I feel like there might be moments of, like, when you pass. I feel like there might be. I feel like things can happen.
Have you been with someone ever when they've passed? Like when they've actually passed? That you can remember? I mean, actually,
not really.
you would probably
animals,
remember.
but not people.
Animal. Unfortunately, we've had a lot of dogs. I've held a lot of dying dogs. It's just the way it is. But I was with my grandfather when he passed.
Freeze. You've been hearing this popping?
No. It might be your headphones because I'm not hearing it.
You're hearing it?
No.
You're not hearing it?
No, I think it might be your headphones. Okay.
Here we go.
I was with my grandfather when he passed. We were all able to be there as he was like actually passing. And I did not experience any type of phenomenon in that moment. What I experienced was peace and love, and I was so grateful. I felt like I had been given a gift, actually, to be able to be there with him in that moment. It felt like a gift that was given to just have that experience. That's how I felt. But nothing, I didn't see any spiritualness leave his body. I didn't see anything like that. Yeah. But hospice nurses, they'll say they see that stuff sometimes.
Sure they will.
Anyhow, so Ray, to wrap it up, you say no ghosts in the basement.
No.
I say there's ghosts in this basement. There's something in this basement. And I highly, highly suggest you go watch episode 2 and watch that first part and you'll see it. We pointed out where that picture kind of flips itself, and you comment and let me know. Am I losing my mind, or is Ray right?
Yeah, we'd like to know. Let us know, or tell us your favorite.
Your ghost story.
Yeah, love to hear it.
We'll see you next time.
Yep.
Don't forget to subscribe, review, and sprinkle some salt around your door on the way out.